executing it. Okay, so sometimes, so reactive expressions, so the render statement, yeah, I'll delete that one, is unnecessary there. The render statement is these render plot, render text, etc. Those are reactive statements. They react to widget input, and so on. Sometimes in your code you want to have reactive code, but you don't actually want it to be part of a render statement for a variety of reasons. For example, you might want some code that gets reused in several render statements, and you don't want to redo the calculations for each, or you want your code to be neater, or there's a variety of reasons why you want this. So there's a function called reactive that's just made for this purpose. Okay, so I think it's easiest to explain this in just an example. So here's the second example. So here I have the same, basically the same UI.R function. But imagine now I want to take my text input and add 100 to it. But I only want to do that once. I want to, I want to add 100 to it, and I want to display it twice, right? So here in this first output, I'm going to display my input incremented by 100, and then in the second one, I'm going to display my input incremented by 100 plus whatever number I put into text 2. Okay, so obviously this doesn't change the runtime that much, but now we only have to increment it by 100 once, rather than doing it twice, once in each reactive render text statement. Okay, so at any rate, you might have thought, oh well, if I just put input asterisk text1 plus 100 outside of this reactive statement, what would happen? Shiny would give you an error because you're trying to utilize reactive input outside of a reactive function or a render text function or something like that is reactive. Okay, so it's a little bit unusual, and if you're not used to it, and you're used to R, it's a little hard to get used to. Okay, so and this just is as opposed to what would give you the same exact functionality is to just add 100 in both render text statements. But of course then you're doing this calculation twice, and of course this calculation doesn't take any time, so it's irrelevant, but you see the principle. So and then we're going to do run app and display mode equals showcase, and again, while inconsequential, that we only have to add 100 one time rather than adding it twice. And then it just would also say, notice the somewhat odd syntax for reactive variables. So notice here, when we actually want the values of x, which was defined as reactive output, we actually have to call it as an executed function with these parentheses, which is a little bit unusual relative to normal R programming. Okay. Okay, so here is my example. I've already started running the app. Here's my Shiny server function right here. Okay. And notice this case I've put the x function, added the 100 in the reactive statement, and it's running. And notice I've run display mode equals showcase. Okay, so right here. Okay, and then now notice so here you can see what code it's running. So if I put in x equals 100, right now it has output text1 equals 200. Output text 2 is NA because we haven't input anything. Now when I put in 100 there, it highlights, notice in the display mode it highlights what it's doing. You can check on UI.R also and see what it's running. Okay? And so you see, and just to prove to you that it does the same thing, let's what's the keyboard shortcut for commenting? Let's see, comment, uncomment is Control-Shift-C. All right, so let's do Control-Shift-C, and then come down here, Control-Shift-C. Okay, save it, stop. Now let's run the app, and we'll just show you that it does exactly the same thing. When let's see, it gives the same exact output. It works just like before, But now instead it's adding 100 separately each time in a separate render.text statement.